Hello, and welcome to 100% Real with Ruby and Tom, where we have another anti wellness wankery series episode for you. And today is on probably the most important topic in terms of nutrition, in terms of building your dream body, in terms of keeping your results, not getting the weight back, not feeling like an absolute lunatic that's on the back of a motorcycle going 100 miles an hour. And that is the topic of maintenance. And there was a post that Tom and I both probably not resonate, that we both put it out there over and over again. And that's the fact that maintenance periods, diet breaks, all that kind of stuff is not taking you away from your goal. It's not putting your goal on hold. It's actually quintessential to getting your results. You will not get permanent results without it. So instead of seeing it as a step away, instead of seeing it as the waiting room to the doctor's office, see it as your actual life, because this is where weight loss resistance, where fat loss resistance happens. When you see people saying that they're trying really hard, they're eating really little, but they can't lose weight. I'm weight loss resistant. My hormones are against me. It's usually the fact that you've never really taken a long enough period away from dieting. And 4 weeks isn't a long period of time. It's kind of funny that a lot of people see 4 weeks as, I don't see anything in 4 weeks, or like it's a whole year, when it's literally just 4 weeks. And diet fatigue is real. And you get frustrated. You lose faith in yourself the more that you put in such a large amount of effort without the results to show for it. The only thing you get out of that is more and more self-doubt, more and more self-deprecation. And the thing is, if you take only a little bit off, or if you keep fighting through and then say, I'm going to start again. And the same can be said for holidays, especially seeing as we're coming up to the holiday season. If you're trying to diet through the holidays, if you're trying to push harder and harder through the holidays, but you're not actually dieting physically, just mentally, and then here comes a fresh start at the end of the holiday season, you're never going to be able to get results after that, because you've just fatigued the shit out of yourself in diet purgatory, putting in all this effort, losing out on all the joys of life, whatever the hell, but getting nowhere physically. And this is exactly why patience is such a valuable resource, why maintenance periods need to be seen as more than just a blip in time or some phase you have to do. No, it's not something you have to do. You choose to do fat loss. You don't get a choice to live in maintenance. Maintenance is life. Why do we have this need? Actually, I'm going to pose this question to you, along with something that I think you'll really enjoy. Why do we feel a need to always be chasing some arbitrary outcome? Like, granted, we get dopamine in the pursuit, even though most of us think that getting that next thing is going to make us immediately like a millionaire in terms of our feelings and happiness and confidence, when it never really does, because you didn't become in the process. And this is just a huge monologue now, so I'm gonna let you have your little spiel on this as well. But the thing that I'm gonna pose to you guys listening to this is, do you truly question your beliefs? Because we question our beliefs, accept the things that we believe so at like we just believe them so much to be true. We don't question those because they're true, right? There's something to think about. I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, I really like the question of why do we always have these arbitrary goals, and I think a big part of it is just a huge miscommunication, or there's probably a lack of understanding by the people who are educating most fitness professionals. And what you've got to think of is that there's this big like pipeline. So most people who in the UK anyway, I don't know how it works in Australia, but everyone in the UK who's a personal trainer, if they're doing it properly, has done a level 3 nutrition course, a level 3 PT course. So to get your license, to get your insurance, there's a specific course you have to do. Now, to be able to teach that course, you have to have done that course. So it just ends up being this like human centipede where like someone will do a course that might not have been very good and they pass, but now they can teach. And so over time, the standards get worse and worse and worse because the people who were teaching the course did a worse course. And what I learned on my level 3 PT course is that as soon as you get a client on board, they need to set a goal. And that goal needs to be placed into the SMART framework. So for those who are not aware, it's a specific, modified, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So you need, when you are setting out on your fitness journey, to be able to say, I would like to lose 10 pounds in 3 weeks or whatever. And that has to be the case. And it just feels as though, linking into what Ruby just said there about not questioning beliefs, nobody's ever questioned that. And it's mental. Like, you do not have to have a specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound goal to be able to start eating better and going and exercising. Like, there doesn't have to be an outcome that you're aiming for. You can literally just do that because it's good for you and because it feels good. And what eventually will happen is you'll probably find that a goal spits out the end. But what I think happens is a lot of the time, people set out seeking fat loss and then they just do that. Like, that is what fitness is. Fitness is this thing where you change your body composition. And so, well, I want to change my body. I want to do fitness. That means I have to change my body composition. I think I'm carrying a bit too much fat because that's what society reckons. Therefore, I'm going to lose fat. And it just feels as though nobody ever steps back and goes like, why? What's the point? And to come into what you were saying about like diet purgatory, I think that's where that starts to come in. So in your clients, Ruby, like, how do you tend to see that manifested? Like, where do you see that coming up?
I was just having this conversation actually, in that we tend to hop to diets, or we need to cut weight when we're going through an emotional period of time, or when we have this sudden lack of control. Like, we had this amazing plan, something didn't go to plan, we weren't able to track properly, we're struggling to gain any momentum. Let's just cut our calories. Let's just slash this. It's just slashing away at nothing really tangible for the sake of trying to feel something at the end. But we've never actually paused to ask ourselves, how is it that we actually want to feel? Because trying to diet over and over again, trying to chase this feeling you think you're going to get at the end of a diet or at the end of whatever pursuit you're like onboarding, is not going to come just because you're losing body fat. You don't just change your feelings from that. If anything, you're going to spiral more out of control, because imparting more control onto something that has no grip, where are you grabbing? You're just inflicting more insult to the wound. And on top of that, the more that you try to control something, the less control you end up having and the more chaos that ensues. And this is why I try to say not to focus so much on fat loss, even if fat loss is the goal. And that's because the more that you focus on fat loss, the more that you have these like limiting beliefs, self-doubt, impatience, the more that you're not actually focusing on the things that matter the most for a long-term outcome, which is, I want to get stronger. I want to feel better, which is something that Tom said, which completely stood out to me, which is, why not just do these things because we feel good? You're okay, you want to lose body fat. But what is it that actually leads to you losing body fat? It's doing those very actions. So instead of seeing them as like a punishment stroke or something you must do to get to this goal, why not see it as, I want to do these things to feel better? Because if I'm doing them for the sake of feeling better, I'm going to keep on doing them. And in being able to keep on doing them, I'm going to get this outcome. But I see it everywhere. To just answer the question as a plain old answer, that's usually what clients come to us for weight loss and for fat loss. And it's almost like, okay, but I'm feeling fluffy. Okay, but I'm feeling like my clothes are tight, where this is also something that we've never really questioned. And that's, why use this scale? Why not just use how our clothes feel? Well, why have we never really questioned the fact that the way that we feel in our clothes is also very subjective? Because that piece of clothing did not change in 2 days, but you can feel significantly, quote unquote, fatter in just a matter of days. Did you just gain a ridiculous amount of body fat in 3 days' time? I highly freaking doubt it. Yet you can feel completely different about your body in those clothes.
Oh, 100%. I mean, like your body image is going to be affected by things like your mood. And like you can have 2 nights of bad sleep and your body image will go down the shitter. And it's like nothing has changed. You have not gained any appreciable amount of body fat. You have not lost muscle. You're just tired. And so you're interpreting what you see in the mirror in a more negative light. And also, there might be like a couple of changes in glycogen or whatever because you've not slept well. And we focus on this so much. Yeah, it's so self-defeating as well because the more negative you feel about your body, the more, as you mentioned there, you're going to start using things like exercise and nutrition as a punishment. And as soon as exercise and nutrition become a punishment, you're already lost. It's as simple as that. What you said about focusing on exercise and nutrition more as like an end in themselves rather than a means to an end is important as well. It's dead common to say focus on the journey. Just enjoy the steps along the way. Don't just focus on the end. It doesn't mean anything. What people mean really when they talk about like focusing on the journey and enjoying the process and all of that is if you judge whether or not the exercise and nutrition that you're doing is worthwhile simply on the question of whether or not you're weighing less than you did a week ago, you're always going to struggle because your body weight will go up and down for a variety of reasons that are completely out of your control. You're going to have undigested food in your digestive tract. You're going to have shifts in glycogen storage. If you've got a menstrual cycle, your weight's going to be all over the place all of the time, and you need to look at general trends. And if your mood and if your understanding of whether or not the thing that you're doing is worthwhile is affected so significantly by weight, it's telling you that you're focusing so much on that that it's going to lead to a negative outcome anyway. Because as soon as you start to get sick of seeing those numbers not doing what you want, you're going to give up on your nutrition, you're going to give up on your training, and you're going to feel worse. If you can focus on eating in a way that makes you feel good, you're not hungry all the time, you've got decent energy, and exercising in a way that makes you feel like you're starting to accomplish things and your body is able to do things that it couldn't do before, you'll lose fat along the way, but it's also just more fun. And on a week-to-week basis, you can feel that the things that you're doing are worthwhile, regardless of what the scale's doing, and it'll just kind of move all by itself.
It's kind of funny because when I have this vivid memory, only like you have those memories that you just have that just stand out and you just remember it every single time you do anything that's particularly related to it. Well, I remember I used to walk up to this squat bar. I used to hate this session more than anything. I used to hate training legs because I used to punish myself for it because everything I did was with the outcome of I need to get leaner. I need to change my body. I don't like it the way it is. It was out of fear of losing what I had already accomplished, which is where people fear moving out of that end of a diet or whatever happens at the end. They fear moving out of it because what if they lose it? And this is the hardest part is that because I was so seen on social media and people commented on my body, they called me the lean legs. They called me the leanness, the lean that, oh my God, you're so lean, or blah, blah, blah. That was like the identity that they created for me. And I felt like that was my validation for that. But then relate this to other people, they're really overweight or whatever it is. They don't have a nice body shape because there's no shape to them whatsoever. And then they start working out, they start losing weight, they have this amazing shape. All of a sudden it's Christmas time or whatever the hell, and someone says, oh my God, have you lost weight? You look really good, blah, 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 giving all these compliments. Now, all of a sudden, that's your self-worth. So now maintenance becomes a feared thing, or eating more becomes a feared thing, or the fear of fucking up, or the fear of screwing up everything that you've already had, ending up worse than you even started, or going backwards, whatever the hell. You fear any of that because now you're going to fear negative feedback. Oh my God, you gained weight, because everything, like, think about the compliments we get or the compliments we don't get. So much of that is around how we look. It's always appearance based. Oh my God, you look really good. Oh my God, your legs look good. Everything is around appearance. No wonder we are so forced to focus on our appearance. And the question is also is that if you're so scared of being judged, there has to be some part of you that judges other people too. That's because, like, I realize that I don't even look at other people in the same way. And when I do, I remember looking at someone today at the gym, and it's because I was like, oh my God, the way that her body is built, it's like she doesn't even have a lot of muscle, but it looks like she does just because of her frame. And it was like looking at her in such a positive light. You don't pick people apart when you are self-assured within yourself. But that aside, back to what I was saying, which I actually completely forgot what path I was going. Oh yeah, my story about walking into the gym. ADHD, guys, come on, stay with me. But I was like, I remember walking up to the squat bar, and my warm-up sets, I kid you not, 20 kilos times 10, 25 kilos times 10, 30 kilos times 10, 35 kilos times 10, 40 kilos times 10, 45 kilos times 10, 50 kilos times 10. Okay, now I can start my working sets at 60 kilos. What the fuck did I just do? Oh, my excuse was I just did a shitload of work because I only have 6 to 8 reps. That's not going to burn a lot of energy. That's not burning calories. That's not keeping me lean. Like, that was my thought process walking in. And all I could think about was how freaking fucked I was going to be after all of those things that I had to do and how long that session was going to take, because I was a lunatic within my own right doing all those things. Now when I walk up to squat bar, I do about 3, 4, depending how warm I feel, 5 warm-up sets, probably about 3 reps of each. Then I go up to like 2 reps, 1 rep as I get heavier. But it's with the intent of what is the purpose behind this exercise? I want to get stronger. I want to enforce a stimulus. I'm not using exercise to burn calories. I'm not using it to burn energy. I'm using it for its exact purpose, which is to create a stimulus to build muscle, which then gets fed via proper nutrition to get the adaptation / result I want, which is the body composition that I want. But yeah, the intense focus on body, let's circle around to that before we talk about the whole maintenance thing, because I feel like this is the most important part of it all, because this is why people make the perpetual dieting mistake that they do, or the weight loss purgatory. We tie our self-worth to our appearance. Everything is around how our body is, body checking. I don't even know the last time I freaking body checked, or even I need to take progress photos. I just can't be fucked. Like, what? Like, it's almost like it's not even a top of mind thing anymore. But so many people tie their self-worth to their physical appearance, which leads to low self-esteem, perpetual body dissatisfaction, which is emotionally taxing, physically taxing, emotionally taxing, which I already said, but think about what's attached to the emotional side, how you interact in relationships, how you interact in your day-to-day life, because our emotions impact so much, which then can lead to a negative spiral of food. But then if you're so tied to your appearance, that's when you're more likely to fall into yo-yo dieting, because all you want is that end goal. And then in with that comes the quick fixes, the extreme dieting, the extreme exercise. You neglect your overall health and well-being, like Tom said. And is that comparison, is that competition with yourself, with your old self, with whatever, everyone online, is that honestly bringing you any joy? Like, where is the fun in this? I have a quote, which I'm going to leave you with now. And that's, are you just going through the motions and avoiding the emotions and neglecting the experience that you can actually gain from the process in life, where it can actually become something more fulfilling?
It's a good question. And thing is, right, you touched on something there when you were talking about compliments and stuff that I think's extremely important. Thing is, right, people always roll their eyes at me when I say this, but the fitness industry needs to address the weight stigma and internalized fat phobia that is experienced by essentially everyone that's involved in this whole thing. Now, when people talk about weight stigma, their thought immediately goes to people with obesity. But the problem you've got is that weight stigma is not just something that affects people with obesity. It's something that affects the person who experiences weight stigma when they look at someone with obesity. Because here's a question, right? What does it say about the mindset of somebody who will only ever compliment somebody when they've lost body fat? What does it say about an industry where we are continually repeating this cycle of someone loses weight, they get compliments. They gain a little bit weight, they lose it again, they get compliments. What we're telling them is that they are only worth complimenting when they've lost weight, and when they've lost weight, that is something that's meaningful and really important. Now, losing weight can be useful for your health if you're coming from a point of view of carrying excessive amounts of body fat. But the problem we've got is, if we hyper focus on that all the time, is it any wonder why there are so many lean people who are terrified of moving to maintenance, who are terrified of not dieting anymore? Because God forbid they gain a pound of body fat. God forbid they are down to 130 pounds and they wake up in 6 months' time and they're 132. Wouldn't that just be so terrible? And we wonder where this comes from. And in the same breath, we will dismiss the idea that we need to, within our industry, have a conversation about the way that we view body fat and the way that we view people that carry it. It's an inevitability that if we build up body fat to be this incredibly negative thing, that we will have lean people who are pinned into the corner, unable to relax with their nutrition, because if they gain body fat, that would be the end of the world, and the sky would fall, and nothing would ever be right again. At the end of the day, when it's, and I've said this a bunch of times before, and other people have as well, this isn't like a novel idea, but losing fat on its own will not improve your body image in the way that you want it to. It can contribute 100%. But if you are someone who's carrying a little bit excess body fat and you have very strong negative feelings about your body image, losing that body fat will only help you if during that time you lose the fear of gaining that body fat back. Because if you don't, all you're going to be is quite confident in your body and fucking terrified that you're going to lose it. And I would argue that that's not really that much of a better position to be in. Certainly, you can feel a little bit better right now, but what happens when you're 5, 10, 15, 20 years older? What happens when you get injured and you can't train? What happens when you go on holiday for a little while and you gain a bit of body fat? What happens when it's Christmas and you want to relax? If your entire body image is tied to the fact that you've got lower body fat and your entire identity as a confident person hinges on the fact that you're quite lean, you're fucked. It's as simple as that. You are fucked. And we in this industry are terrified of talking about it. And if you ever raise this in a group of people who are fitness people, some of them will laugh at you, some will call you an SJW, and it's just the person who is sat on Instagram editing their pictures to make themselves look leaner doesn't have any better body image than the person who's 40 pounds overweight that they're criticizing. It's as simple as that.
I was actually going to question you at the start of all about, but do you even relate to that lean person who's scared to put on a pound? That really, do you relate? Like, can you relate to that really lean person that's scared to put on even a pound?
I used to 100%. I think almost anybody who's in this industry will do. I mean, it's a fairly well-known fact that the most fat-phobic people are people who used to carry excess body fat because they're fucking terrified of gaining it back. And that's a lot of people in this industry. A lot of people in this industry are people who used to carry a bit of excess fat and then they lost weight and they want to share that journey with other people. Like, that's 90% of people.
And they're back on. I love the way you said that. So that just framed the next part I was going to say, which is there are a lot of people that can say to you and me, it's easy for you to say. That's what I wanted to frame. But that's the thing as well. Like, I literally just said I was lean as fuck and I was still scared. Actually, you know what? I didn't even see myself as lean, and I was lean and I never saw it. I was actually like, I was still picking myself apart. It's like the leaner I was, the more I was picking myself apart about how imperfect I was and how many things I had to change. And in all of this, I wasn't even enjoying my life because my life revolved around thinking about all the different things that I wanted to change about my body. Like, do you really want to live that way?
No, of course you don't. I mean, like, people probably don't say that to me because I don't have like the typical fitness person physique. Like, I ain't got a six-pack. Like, I've got love handles. I don't give a shit. Like, at the end of the day, like, to me, what's important is I train because I enjoy it. I have really good mobility for someone that doesn't do a great deal of mobility. I did 2 marathons a couple of years ago. Like, I'm healthy and fit, and I walk my dog, and I'm married. Like, why do I don't give a shit about having a six pack. And I think that where I'm at with my body image is, and I know this sounds incredibly conceited, but I've done a lot of work to get here. But I think this is where people should try to get to, where it's like, I'm just not bothered. It doesn't factor into how I feel on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes throughout the year I'll be a little bit leaner. Sometimes throughout the year I'll not be. Not really due to any particular effort on my part. Just I don't track my food, so sometimes I eat a bit less, sometimes I eat a bit more. And having been on the other side, I just feel so free. And I think this is where people should be. Like for me, my fitness goals are I want a bigger deadlift, and I want to continue being able to climb mountains without getting too out of breath. Like physique's not really part of it. And
The funny thing with that though is that's the thing. Like if you look at Tom, okay, he's not overly muscular. He doesn't look like he's going to compete in bodybuilding anytime soon.
them nutty looks, unfortunately, yeah.
But that's the thing, because he still looks fit. He isn't overweight, and he focuses on performance. He fuels for performance. He focuses on his own client's ability to fuel for performance, just like I do. And while my version of feeling free, I actually put up this post before, and it's that in order to get, it's almost like to get to a sort of, to know one extreme, you have to have been at the other extreme. But that's usually the thing, because we find ourselves bouncing from one extreme to the other extreme, which is where I'm sorry, but I fucking hate health at every size. Most of the people that go to the whole anti-diet, you don't need to track, tracking's obsessive and disordered, blah, blah, blah. They're the people that have disorder. They at one point were so restricted with their diet that they fucked themselves over because of that. It's almost like we bounce from one extreme to the other extreme, but I feel like the balance is found somewhere in the middle, but it just somehow takes bouncing to the end and opposite extreme, experiencing that side to finally find your calibration in the middle. But what came to this is Tom said that he feels free. His version of freedom will not look like your version of freedom. My version of freedom looks different to his version of freedom, whereas I do give a fuck about my physique. I want to look like I don't even want to look like a snack. I want to look like a fucking 3-course meal, mate. Like, yes, I care about my physique, but I don't even focus on it. I don't body check. I realize that even in winter, like I've never really stood in front of my mirror, and I looked at it the other day just to be like, I haven't taken a photo here in quite a while, but then I'm like, no wonder I don't take a photo in here in quite a while, because I can't even see my friggin' face. Like I just have, if you're watching the video version, I just have Post-it notes all over it. Like you can't see much. Anyway, back to the point is, I used to be someone who body checks all the time, who checks to see, hey, do I have abs? Hey, do I have this? Like now my form of body checking is my flex in the mirror as I'm doing bicep curls. Oh, is my program actually like, am I getting results from this thing? And because I'm seeing results from the bicep stuff that I'm doing in my program, I haven't changed shit in the program that I have now from my last program, because I've been seeing results from it. Don't fix what ain't broke. I'm starting to see results in my arms now, and I'm like, it's not, I'm focusing so much on what I lack, where I'm not yet, even though, yeah, I would kind of like some bigger arms. Yeah, I'm kind of pissed off that my delts aren't genetically made to look like boulder shoulders. Like, yeah, okay, cool. I can't change that. What can I change? I can change the effort I put into my training. I know that every single rep counts. I can get annoyed at the reps that fall short of that, of me not pushing myself. It's focusing on the process and making the process the goal, but not beating yourself up for not where you are yet, because hello, where are we rushing to? Death? Like everything that you do now is a deposit into your future. Everything you build now is an insurance policy when you're 80 years old and you don't look like majority of the population when you go to the shopping market that look like walking canes because they're hunched over like that. Like it did like it's not their fault because fitness wasn't big back then. And this is why it is such a privilege to be able to use the facilities that we have access to be able to use the knowledge that we have access to, the coaches that are now out, that you can actually invest in yourself with the proper plan to stop spinning your wheels so that 5 years down the road, you're not wishing that you actually put time into building your muscle because no, you are not building muscle and losing fat at the same time. You're spinning your wheels and putting yourself into a further diet purgatory. Friggin' just build the muscle. If you have a lot of fat to lose, cool. Lose the fat first, but still trying to build muscle. You don't just not build muscle because you're trying to lose fat. It's just the focus needs to be on losing fat. Except, like I just said, the focus isn't really on losing fat. It's on knowing what it takes. Like, you know that the first step is lose fat. So your diet needs to be focused on losing fat. But as I just said, you train to build muscle. That's where the focus goes.
Yeah.
Train for the performance, fuel for the performance, but know that every single action step you do is going to lead to the fat loss. But you're still training for performance. If you can then get to that position where now you're ready to focus your nutritional intake on performance, you don't have to redo all the steps or try to learn how to shift focus because that's where your focus has been all along. Take the podium.
100%. Like, look, fat loss is basically a passive process. All you need to do is eat fewer calories than maintenance for a bit, and fat loss will happen. And the problem is that that's really boring. So if you're eating to lose fat, the fat loss is sorted. That's you done. You just have to wait. And that's why I tend to get people to focus so much on, right, while you're losing fat, let's do something in the gym, whether that's pushing to get stronger, whether it's pushing to move better, whether it's pushing to run faster, whatever it is, because that's something that you can engage with on a weekly and daily basis. Like, if you're wanting to get better at deadlifting, you can work on your mobility, you can work on your technique, you can do all of that, and you can see regular improvements. And all the while, you can eat in a calorie deficit, and that just happens in the background. If your only focus is on fat loss, you are going to get impatient because it's fucking boring. So what you're going to do is you're going to start trying to eat a bit less, or you're going to try and do something to find some hacks to speed it up, or you're going to work on some supplements, or you're going to do something. And all of the time, you're increasing your attention on this thing to the point that any day where there's a weight fluctuation or any day where there's a change in the mirror becomes this disaster because it's the only thing you're thinking about. By treating fat loss as this passive process where you do the thing and then focus on something else, you make it so much easier. It's just way less stressful. And to come back to the maintenance side of things, because you mentioned diet purgatory there, something that I talk about in my coaching, and you mentioned it as well, is diet fatigue. Now, I don't know if diet fatigue is a real thing. I don't think I've seen that term in the literature, but all I mean by it is, if you've been
like Lyle McDonald says it, so it's a thing.
Oh, if Lyle says it, it's definitely a thing. Diet fatigue is just the thing where you've been dieting for a really long time and you start to find that your progress is dropping off. So you haven't lost fat in a few weeks, things haven't really changed. And the reason for that is nothing magical. It's just that you've been doing it for ages and you're probably eating a bit more food. And the problem you've got is if you're trying to diet, once you hit that point, what you're going to do is you're going to spend most of your time in a calorie deficit. You're going to be hungry. You're going to be low on energy. And then you're going to have these periods where you overeat, whether it's in the evening or at weekends or on certain days or whatever. And so what happens is you get all of the negatives of dieting because you're dieting most of the time, and you don't get the benefits of fat loss because you're screwing it up by simply being fatigued with the whole process and doing things that are not in line with that goal. So just maintain on purpose. Just spend 2 to 8 weeks where you're eating at maintenance, eating a little better, spending more time focusing on performance. And then at a certain point, you're going to think, do you know what? I'm ready to start dieting again. And then you can diet again and it'll just work. Rather than continually beating your head against the wall and feeling more and more guilty and feeling more and more useless and settling more and more into learned helplessness where you don't think that success is even possible. Just like draw a line under it, do something else for a while, and then come back to it. I mean, this is a really, really common concept in training. So if you're going to the gym and you're continually training really, really hard on your program, and you start to notice that you're feeling more tired and you're not progressing as much as possible, the solution is not to train more, it's to deload. And the exact same thing happens with nutrition. If you're dieting for ages and over time you're getting more and more hungry and progress is stalling because you're eating a bit more than you really need to diet here and there, rather than just trying to diet harder, just take a deload or a diet break and just eat at maintenance for a while until you feel better again. Then you can diet again. The problem with that, though, is that that sounds too nice and people are impatient. And the reason they're impatient comes back to the fat phobia that we talked about before. If you experience fat as this horrible thing that needs to be gone now, you will get impatient and it'll cause you to fuck it up. So while you're losing fat, work on why that's such a big deal to you, work on other things that'll improve your body image, like your training performance, and all of these things kind of coalesce into this situation where you can just be chill about it. And when you're chill about it, it works way better.
So I guess with all that said, I'm going to sum it up with some really important things and some practical takeaways. One of the important things to note, though, is that a fear, aside from gaining fat, is the loss of control. Because when you have a set goal, you work really hard for it. You're very on point with everything you need to do to make sure that you get to that end goal, because you can do anything hard for a short period of time. Once that goal is removed, once that end date is removed, a lot of women fear a loss of control. They fear losing control of their eating habits, of getting too lax. And I see this over and over again because, exactly like Tom and I have been saying the whole last half an hour, is that you have only ever focused on weight loss. You have only ever cared about what you eat for the sake of losing fat. You've only ever tracked for the sake of losing fat. You've only ever thought that you need a coach for weight loss. You've never considered using a coach to prime you for weight loss, because you need a primer phase before you do a weight loss phase. And you've never actually done a maintenance phase or a diet break or a building phase properly with a coach. So of course you're going to lose sense of control. And also people approach maintenance phases the wrong way. You don't just add food back in when you finish dieting, because your leptin levels stay low and your ghrelin levels come up through the roof. What that means is your hunger increases exponentially at I don't even know what the word is, at a different rate. There's a word for it. At a different rate to the leptin. The leptin stays suppressed, meaning you're not going to get the fullness signals. You're not going to feel satisfied. You're just going to feel hungrier, even if you're eating more food. So now, if you add in all the foods that you cut out of your stupid keto fuckery, whatever it is you did anyway, it's just the first thing that came to mind because I had a conversation about frigging keto this morning. But whatever diet you did, if you add back the Tim Tams, the Oreos, whatever the hell, you're going to end up 10 kilos overweight, whatever the hell, because you're not going to be able to stop yourself from that, because the cravings are still going to be there. You need to eat more of what you're already eating, and don't reverse diet, because that will also lead to you gaining all the weight back as well. If you reverse diet in like 50 calorie increments, think about the fact that I just said your hunger is going to be through the roof, your satiety hormones are going to be down. You're going to end up picking up your energy expenditure, because now you're starting to fuel yourself more. Now you're actually focusing on fueling yourself more. So that in itself is a placebo effect to do more things. You're going to dig a hole. Just bring your calories up to your new maintenance and eat more of the same food so that you don't end up in a hole. To tie this up with a bow, what advice would you say in a podium speech or an whatever, what are they called? A radio show speech, a introduction, some elevator pitch. In an elevator pitch, what advice would you give to women who fear taking a diet break because they fear it might lead to this loss of control or weight gain?
I think the framing of going into maintenance as a loss of control is really important, because what that tells me is that if you view not being in a fat loss phase as losing control, what it tells me is that you're eating for fat loss in a way that makes you feel like shit, and you're having to control all of these urges. And that tells me again that you're focusing on the outcome, the fat loss, rather than the process, the way that what you're doing right now is making you feeling. If you're exercising in a way that you enjoy and you're eating plenty of whole foods in a moderate deficit that's sustainable, that shouldn't feel like control. It should just feel like doing something that makes you feel really good. And the second that it starts to feel like control, restriction, not allowed certain things, not allowed to do what you want to do, then moving away from that will feel like a lose of control because your grip on it is so tenuous to begin with. So if you're in that spot, rather than continuing to maintain your control, which is like holding on to a handful of water, start to reframe the way that you're thinking about the diet in like from the get-go, from the ground up. Review the way that you're approaching this. You're not controlling your food in a way to drop fat as quickly as possible. You're eating in a way that makes you feel better. And if you're eating in a way that makes you feel better, that's not a thing that you have to control. That's something that you'll want to do by itself. And so moving to maintenance is just a continuation of eating in a way that makes you feel good, because what you were doing before wasn't make you feel good. So of course, well, I'm going to move to maintenance because it'll make me feel good. Right? Okay, I've been at maintenance for a while. I'm ready to lose fat. I'm going to eat in a way that makes me feel good again. Like it sounds so simple and it sounds like wordplay, but the difference that it makes is enormous. And anyone who's trying to lose fat, I would always encourage to look at the way you're framing what you're doing first and foremost, because if you're struggling with adherence, that's probably the foundation of where you're going wrong.
I love that. And with that, that brings our maintenance episode to an end. If you enjoy this, if you have anything else that you want us to talk about, shoot us a message and we will cover it. I'm loving the fact that you guys are tagging us in your stories and reaching out and saying that it impacts you, because we love doing these and we love the banter that we get in two different accents from across the pond with ducks that go quack. So with that, you will hear us in the next episode. And thank you so much for listening.
Cheers, everyone.